We start with this developing story. More South African soldiers have been killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo following fierce fighting in Goma. 3 more SANDF members were shot dead during an offensive from the M23 rebels who launched several mortar bombs in the direction of Goma Airport yesterday, while another succumbed to his injuries following battles with the rebels over the past 3 days. This brings to 13 the total number of SANDF members killed in the region in less than a week. At the same time, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have spoken telephonically about the security situation in the eastern DRC. Government officials in that country say the army is now in control of most of the key town of Goma, but the M23 rebels insist that they are in control. Kenya's President William Ruto, in his capacity as chairperson of the East African Community, has invited both his Rwandan and DRC counterparts to a meeting. Well, for more on this situation in the DRC, I'm joined in studio by Khayelihle Khumalo. Thank you very much for joining us, Kaya. Very serious situation that we're witnessing. 13 SANDF members that have been killed, as far as we are aware. What is the latest that you know?
Well, certainly, a very volatile situation. And of course, the South African authorities, they still do insist that the troops who are deployed in the DRC in the eastern parts, they're still really just working there with resolve, the determination, really to make sure that the peacekeeping process continues. But obviously, it's a very escalating situation, especially after now the city of Goma has been captured by M23, especially for the civilians now, the humanitarian crisis, but also getting the reports that, for example, there has been a disruption in terms of the water supply, the electricity, and many other key facilities as well. But it's also a very concerning situation, especially because as we await keenly for that East African community meeting, where a number of leaders, of course, the elephant in the room will be now this encounter, albeit virtually by President Kagame and President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC, where they will have to really get to the bottom of this issue.
Well, how will they get to the bottom of the issue when there's so much distrust between them? Because my understanding is that Tshisekedi actually told the Rwandan authorities that they should disappear back to Rwanda and got rid of all the officials within Congo. There's not much trust there. And the other elephant in the room is M23 itself. If it's not party to the conversations, what's going to happen?
Quite a lot at stake, Nombe, especially like you just alluded, especially in this instance. I mean, you go back to that time when Mr. Tshisekedi, the DRC president, took an oath of office. In fact, there was a point where he was willing to declare war against Rwanda. But also now, what is very important for the region is to rally behind, to look at the bigger picture, especially because of many of the warnings, for example, the United Nations saying it's a very volatile region, the Great Lakes region, where if one country is facing a conflict, it can easily go to Rwanda, go to Burundi, and many other countries as well. But also for the M23, especially because there are issues that the main government in Kinshasa is not looking after their interest. And that's why you're seeing what is happening. So it's quite important for them to prioritize dialogue, diplomacy in this instance.
So the SANDF, they put out a statement, obviously updating us on the latest fatalities, but also speaking about a video that had gone viral of somebody waving a white flag, which, you know, obviously denotes surrendering. And they wanted to really emphasize that that was not a situation where South African force members were actually surrendering. Can you just clarify what that statement said?
Well, definitely, Nombe. So as far as the SANDF is concerned, they're saying there was a mutually agreed truce between, of course, the side that is backing the DRC government and, of course, those who are opposing, of course, the DRC government. That would be the M23. So there was this mutually agreed truce to allow them to come and collect their bodies. We do understand in terms of the locality, this was right in the vicinity of the Goma Airport. So this was to allow the M23 to collect the bodies of their members, but also for the South Africans as well, and many other members who are part of the SADC mission in the DRC, but also MONUSCO, so that they're able to take their bodies, but also for those who are injured to go to the medical facilities and get the medical care. So that's exactly what you do understand. But it's a very fluid situation where so many of these videos are in circulation, really depicting all sorts of things.
Indeed. And then the last thing, a couple of things really. Where does M23 come from? You know, how did it emanate? And ultimately, what does this say about the power or the control of the Congolese government, that is Tshisekedi?
It's quite interesting, Nompa. I mean, just at the recent UN Security Council meeting, the Congolese Foreign Affairs Minister said this is the very darkest time for the DRC, where, I mean, you go back as far as in the early 2000s, where the issue around the peace deal, after a very terrible conflict in the DRC, where the issue around M23, so there's quite a host of grievances where they feel that in terms of the inclusion, for example, within the DRC, in terms of the armed forces, some of their members were excluded, but also their interest as well. But also it's a very interesting part of the DRC where you do have the cobalt, very key for the electric vehicles and many other natural resources. So there are so many external actors really do have enormous interest in this regard. But also for the government of Congo, they say it's quite important to really try and restore that issue so that they do have their sovereignty, they're able to enjoy it in terms of the territorial integrity and a lot of issues. But that East African community meeting, but also the UN Security Council meeting, there's quite a lot of expectations. But obviously, I mean, with these meetings, they meet and then what happens after. So it's always a very big issue. But others, they're banking on the Luanda process. It's a process that has been led by the Angolan president, João Lourenço. They had a ceasefire, but that, you know, has been really violated.
All right. Thank you so much, Khaya, for that update and giving us some context there. That's my colleague, Khayelihle Khumalo.